After a quick flight from Portugal to Denmark, we checked into a hotel in Copenhagen. It had a really wonderful view of the harbor, and every day we got to observe people swimming, biking, and kayaking below.
I'm not sure it gets more Danish than people kayaking under the bike bridge across from your hotel. And swimming.
Harbor swimming when it's 66 degrees out for the air temperature.
You know.
First up on our agenda was a bike tour of the city, but it was postponed due to the Ironman race that happened to be that day that covered most of the bike route. Instead, we ate lunch at this cute little outdoor food market and then walked around some more along the river. Afterwards, we visited Christiania. Christiania is an independent community of about 1,000 residents. It used to be an abandoned military base, but in the 70s, a group of people broke in and started living there. Although it's inside of Denmark, it has its own rules and is recognized as an anarchy. Marijuana isn't legal in Denmark, but you can find the famous Green Light District inside of Christiania, which the Danish police turn a blind eye to for the most part. We walked around for a while inside and got a drink. The vibe inside the Freetown walls was very relaxed. Residents were smoking, listening to music, and spending time in the gardens. I wasn't sure what to expect when we visited, but I really enjoyed passing through. The next day, Jack and I visited Tivoli, which is an amusement park in Copenhagen. Walt Disney actually visited Tivoli and drew inspiration from the park, which he used when designing Disneyland. We came here back in December of 2018, but it was pretty snowy then, so it was nice to come back on a warm day in the summer.
Cindy and I spend the day on an architecture tour of the town. And by architecture, it doesn't actually mean design, but more urban planning and philosophy. And we super geek out on this. Our guide is fantastic. We stop and see a lot of things that describe how their community works and how they privilege the community over individuals. There is an amazing dorm that we stop at. We see a great community gym, and then we see their recycling and power plant, Copenhagen, which is just kind of incredible. There's a lot of detail on this at the blog, and so rather than take up space here, you should go read that.
The next day was Mom's birthday, so we went on the bike tour that we were originally supposed to do on the first day there. Our guide was actually also a Californian who then moved to Denmark a while back, so it was great to hear her perspective on the city while getting to see all the best spots in Copenhagen, like the Little Mermaid statue. Finish off the tour in the adorable Nyhavn area. After riding around for a couple hours, we went to a traditional Danish restaurant to celebrate Mom turning 50. There we tried SMØRREBRØD, which is kind of like an open-faced sandwich that can have any different kinds of toppings or flavors. Then, of course, because it was her birthday, I agreed to go swimming with Mom in the freezing harbor next to our hotel to finish off the day. The following morning, we took a train from Copenhagen into Sweden, with stop number 1 being Gothenburg. To kick it off, we took another bike tour there to learn about Gothenburg. Hearing about its history was interesting, but the best part was watching our tour guide cycle around the city on this old-fashioned bike with a really large front wheel. After the tour, we knew we really wanted to come back the next day and visit this trendy little area called Haga. In Haga, we stopped for fika, which is a Swedish tradition of taking a coffee and dessert break every afternoon. For our fika, we got these massive cinnamon buns that Haga is known for, and it looks small, so here's a picture of it next to Jack for reference to show how big they really are. After fika, we spent some more time shopping, walking around, and doing some light thrifting. Stop number 2 in Sweden was Stockholm, where we did, you guessed it, another bike tour. Our guide took us all around Stockholm, so later that day we knew exactly what places we wanted to go back and see. Jack stayed back in the hostel while my parents and I rode to the Gamla Old Town area. There's a ton of history and culture here, so we decided to stop by a bookstore to check out some of the world's finest literature, all collected here in Sweden. The next day we rented bikes from our hotel and went to check out some of Stockholm's museums. The first was the Viking Museum, where we got to learn about the Viking Age in Sweden. We spent a decent amount of time there playing this old traditional Viking game that is kind of similar to chess. After the Viking Museum, we went to one of my new favorite places on earth, the ABBA Museum. Those of you who know me know that I love ABBA, and I'm actually quite bummed that I can't use them as background music for this part of the vlog because of copyright reasons. This museum's motto is "Walk in, dance out," which I thought was a pretty accurate representation of our time there. After that, we went into the third museum of the day, the Vasa Museum, to see this giant ship.
In 1628, the Vasa sank in the Stockholm harbor less than 30 minutes into its maiden voyage. It remained underwater until it was discovered in the 1950s. Due to the cold water and location of the sinking, the ship was perfectly preserved. The Vasa Museum now holds the ship along with amazing exhibits on the recovery of the ship. It was fascinating to learn how conservationists carefully brought the ship to the surface in the 1960s and worked over many years to display and preserve her.
On the last day in Stockholm, my parents took a tour of Stockholm City Hall, where they hold the Nobel Prize banquet. The following morning, we flew off to Berlin, and it should come as a surprise to nobody that we kicked off our time in Germany with another bike tour. For 4.5 hours, we cycled all around the city and learned tons about the Berlin Wall and the Cold War.
We started our bike tour near an area of the Berlin Wall that was covered in graffiti done by local artists. Our guide told us all about the history of East and West Berlin and took us around all the notable spots in the city.
Later that night, I decided to take on Berlin's nightclub scene and went with a girl I met to a place called Club der Visionäre, which sits on the canal. These blurry pictures are actually all from online and not from me, because when you get there, you're required to put stickers on your phone cameras and no pictures or videos are allowed inside the club, which I learned is actually normal for most Berlin nightclubs. The next day was more relaxed, and my mom and I took a walk around the Tiergarten, which is a large park outside the hotel we stayed at. On the other side of the park is the famous Brandenburg Gate, which was built in the late 1700s to serve as an entry point to the city of Berlin. It also stood between East and West Berlin while the wall was still up. On our last full day there, we rented bikes and made our way to a popular food hall for lunch. After that, we biked to the East Side Gallery, which is a series of murals painted along the longest remaining section of the Berlin Wall. We came back to the hotel afterwards and packed up for the long day of travel that we had coming up. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and I hope you've enjoyed watching our journey so far.